A motion regarding restoring fairness to the leasehold system has been submitted by Councillor Peter Golds. Can you please move your motion? You have 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The issue of leaseholders, the leasehold system, and introducing fairness is something that has come to the top of the agenda in recent years. I'm delighted to say that there has been an enormous amount of cross-party work in Parliament and across the local government association, and that councillors of all political parties, hung councillors and those of no political party, are passing resolutions on the subject of leaseholders, because we have an enormous responsibility, not only to the people we represent, to bring their concerns. The subject of leaseholding and leaseholding of properties is a very, very strangely British phenomena. It doesn't exist in other parts of the world. And particularly when you meet, as we do in our borough, and indeed local authorities across the country, people who've moved to this country, they are absolutely staggered at the pitfalls of the leasehold system and the consequences it can have on them if they purchase something. There are absolutely extraordinary situations that I can raise. In some cases, ground rents have doubled in 10 years. In other cases, it doubles just once. There are reports of lenders refusing to lend on what they deem unreasonable or onerous ground rent clauses. And think about those. Think of some poor person who purchases a property, discovers it gets a lease, and then gets stuck in these awful situations of the ground rent situation. Leasehold campaigners argue there are close to 100,000 people affected, that's 100,000 people across the country, affected by terms that leave them with ground rent in excess of 0.1% of a property value. Now that doesn't sound a lot, but what is 0.1% of a property value in the London borough of Tower Hamlets? There could well be people amongst our residents who are caught on that, and one would say that these circumstances are incredibly onerous. The result of this is frequently unsaleable property, where you have a situation where a developer is long gone and has sold a freehold to a distant investment company, frequently investment companies from another country. And yet poor residents, poor people are absolutely stuck on that. So I would say to the council, or I would ask the council this evening, to look at this, to look at the carefully crafted motion we've had, and motions similar to this have passed through, as I said, have passed through councils up and down the country, and pass this tonight, because this will enable us, this authority, to go to London councils, where we're well represented by Mayor John Biggs, to the local government association, where we have representation, and ultimately to Parliament, to make sure that the voice of leaseholders are not forgotten. They are not forgotten people within our country. I see there have been amendments by the majority party. Councillor will comment on those, but I do ask the council to look at this motion this evening, pass it as quickly as possible, so we could work together with authorities across the country to help out people who have been caught in these appalling traps.
I call upon Councillor Andrew Wood to second the motion, please.
Yes, I formally second the motion. So the inspiration came from this because, probably like many of you, we sort of deal with leaseholders and we hear horror stories about some of the problems that's going on, and I know there's some active groups in the Isle of Dogs talking about some of these issues and how they affect them personally. Also came from Harry Scoffin, a local resident in my ward, who's been very passionate about this issue. The other inspiration for this, actually, for example, St Helens Borough Council passed a couple of months ago a not dissimilar motion to this. They actually did it on a unanimous basis, on a cross-party basis. And on that basis, we therefore accept the amended motion submitted by the Labour group, with one slight quibble, but which I'll point out. The term common hold and the introduction into English law was actually done by a Labour government in 2002 in the Common Hold and Leasehold Reform Act. And it's really interesting when you read the comments of Labour ministers in 2002 as to why they thought this act was important. We live with those same issues today. And I think it's fair to say that that government, the coalition government and the current government have not really done enough to push this agenda. and therefore we decided to introduce this motion to try and do what we can locally. I accept, there's limits to our powers, but certainly we can use our moral authority, given the huge numbers of apartments I talked about earlier that are being built locally within Tower Hamlets. I think this is one of the issues. The more we can do to solve these issues, I think the less our casework will be in future years. So therefore, as I said, we accept this amended motion, and we hope you will obviously accept it as well. Thank you.
Councillor Siraj Islam, can you please move your amendment to the motion? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think in light of Councillor Wood's accepting the amendment, I'm just going to simply move my amendment and said that, it's a motion that we feel it's a relevant one to bring here. And I think what I'm going to suggest is that, Madam Speaker, that we move to the vote.
Could you ask Councillor Wood? Yeah, Councillor Wood, you did agree to the amendments.
Yes.
So I call upon Councillor Rachel Blake to second the amendments quickly.
Just formally.
Does anyone want to talk on the amendment motion? No? So we all agree, or move to the vote? Somebody move to the vote? Yes?
Is that agreed?
Is that agreed? You sure?
Yes.
Is there any abstentions? Let me make sure. Did everybody agree? Yes. Rabina Khan? Yes. I want to make sure.